As a tachi, you have to give your all to people in your team. Then for the final part, you have to calm yourself a lot to be able to perform in that last match as a shijo. So it's a really demanding job. Ishido Sensei was teaching, and I saw this sensei which was completely amazing in everything he did. He became like a mythical person in my mind that, wow, this amazing sensei. Then years after, I finally went to Japan and practiced at the dojo in Kawasaki where Ishido Sensei lives and teaches. We have this word in Finnish called sisu. It means perseverance. I think that's a trait in the Finnish people that makes us wanting to practice Budo, because it's a really kind of art that requires a person to not to have like stamina, but you can do this for your entire life.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tokushikai Inside Look podcast. Today we're speaking with Teija Pihlaja from Helsinki, Finland. Teija began practicing Jodo and Iaido under Momiyama Takao Sensei, kyoshi Nanadan, and is currently Yondan Jodo and Sandan Iaido in the Finnish Kendo Association and practices in Helsinki Kendo Club, Ken Tai Ichi. In this wide-ranging conversation, we talk about her introduction to the Japanese martial arts, the development of Jodo and Iaido in Finland, and her personal experiences around learning and leadership. It was a pleasure speaking with someone with such a passion and dedication to the martial arts, and her enthusiasm for developing herself and the arts is infectious and inspiring. Not everyone is fortunate to have a high-ranked sensei or active leader in their hometown. This episode is a tribute to those who have taken upon themselves to make the practice possible. Teija is a wonderful example of this. So without further ado, here's Teija Pihlaja.
Well, hello. I'm Teija Pihlaja, and I was born and raised in Helsinki, Finland. I started in 2001 with martial arts, with aikido as a university student. And as a child, I was really interested in martial arts. And in Japan, not really a huge fan, but I found it really, really interesting. And that's how it basically went.
Up until that point, you hadn't had a chance to try out martial arts or do anything with Japan?
Not really. I like movies, and one of the impacting series was Shogun. Maybe you've seen it too. It's like a historical tale of a sailor, if I remember correctly, to enter in Japan, and it basically tells about this culture differences in his path, something like that.
What do you remember most from that show?
Just that I was a really, really small child. I haven't seen it since, but the thing that was impacting me the most was that Japan seemed like a fairy tale country. And it has lived in my mind as such. And many times when you see footage or films or pictures of Japan, it looks like a fairy tale country to me.
So you finally were able to start practicing something Japanese. You started aikido. Talk about that experience. How did you begin?
Well, I basically found it at my university, and there was nothing special about that. I went to the basic course and found that I really like weapons training, as that time there was lots of that during aikido practice at that club. I did aikido for a while, and well, family issues came in that time, and I stopped for a couple of years, and then I went back to aikido. And after that, I really started to seriously practice aikido more than 5 times a week. At that time, a friend of mine in aikido told me that there is this club in Helsinki which practices Jodo. I was maybe not the next day, but certainly it was the next week when I went to practice and see how Jodo was, and that was that. Yeah.
Did you go watch a class first and then decide, or did you just say, oh, there's this other weapons, so let me just try it out, and joined?
I didn't went to see. I looked up in the internet and saw a video of Jodo, and yeah, I just went to the club which I'm currently running. And at the time, I went as a beginner, and with various events happening in between, that's where I'm now. I ended up here.
Well, let's dig into those events. So you first started practicing, and it was not long before you started participating in more club activities or taking on leadership roles. Can you talk about how that all began and when you felt like you really needed to step up?
Well, first year I just practiced, and then the competing came a big part of Jodo, as I was asked to join the national team in Jodo. I went to my first championships in Belgium, and next year the responsible person for Jodo, who organizes events and such, he sort of wanted to resign, and he wanted me to replace him, so I did. In 2014, I started to organize events also for the club. And because in Finland, only our club is the one that organizes most events in Jodo, that was more or less my responsibility. And it has been until now, and still going on. In 2013, I was asked to teach my first Jodo basic course. I started teaching gradually from that, and my sensei at the time, he was Yondan. He just now passed away a couple of months ago. And we taught at the club, and I was leading the basic course and he did all the rest. And then gradually he became sick. So my role as a club leader became slightly bigger.
When you first started running the events or taking on administrative duties in the dojo or teaching, how much of that was stuff that you were just taking over that someone else was already doing, and how much of that was you creating something new?
Well, basically, the two events that they had were something that was taking over from another person, but then I also became a part of this one event that we had in our club, which was quite unique and still is. And it's been organized a couple of times because our club has 4 arts: Kendo, Jodo, Iaido, and Naginata. The club board at the time had an idea that we can join all the arts together. So we did, and I made this kind of event with all the 4 arts. And we had a taikai with team members from all arts, and we had fights like against another team. And that time it was 4-member teams. So that was fun. And
that is so
everybody
cool.
has liked that. Yeah.
I would love to hear more details. What did you call the event? What was the schedule of the day? How did the tournament format work?
Well, the tournament format is based on pools and people fighting against each other, but you have teams because it's a team taikai. So first you have against another Iaidoka from another group or another team, and then the Jodoka fighting against each other with separate touches. Then the Naginata, they would do either, if they had Bogu, they could do just a Shiai, or with just a kata performance. Them doing the same kata 2 times as an sort of uchi, and I don't remember the roles exactly in Naginata, but just the other way around as well. And then the Kendo Shiai in the end. Of course, we also had juniors joining this event, and the juniors would do kirikaishi or something like that, and the kendo judges would judge this based on performance. And of course, there would be changing of the judges as well many times during the matches. And everything starts and ends with the rei, 2 teams facing each other and bowing to each other.
So it's set up with the lines for Iaido, people facing the judges, and then it also has the center court set up so that Naginata and Kendo can have their shiai?
Well, basically like that. It's not happening at the same time, but you have one match and then the match is over and people are coming into the shiaijo, going back, and then another player is coming in and then going back and another player is coming in, so that there's only one match at a time, but the entirety of the match is all team members have to fight.
I've never even thought about doing something like that. That is so amazing. But a lot of work to arrange the judges.
Yeah, it's a lot of work and just organizing, because sometimes we had not even teams. So some people had to fight in 2 teams or even 3. And yeah, it was quite fun. And everything was not, or the teams were sort of like drawn. They were the members of the team. So you couldn't choose who is in your team, but it's based on sort of luck that you get who you get for your team. So, yeah.
As an organizer, it probably just zooms by very quickly and you're just looking at all the things that have to be done, all the work. But what are some of the more memorable experiences or times during that event that still sticks in your mind?
Well, the Kendo kids are the best of them all. And just the spirit of the Kendo kids, it's amazing. And well, each time, most of the times, I've been competing and judging and organizing, but mostly just judging Jodo and competing in Iaido and sort of like that. And every time I'm not on the court, I'm also being a judge in a Iaido Taikai. So it's a lot of work.
I'm sure you slept well at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Okay, so you started Aikido. It led you into these other weapons arts. What happened after you started getting more into the Jodo and the Iaido? Did Aikido fall off? Do you still practice it?
No, it didn't fall off. I did both at the same time. When I started Jodo, I also was teaching at an Aikido basic course, and I did practice a lot during that time. When I started Jodo, I only did it once a week, so not that much. And then gradually, when I had to start teaching Jodo, I also started Iaido, and it suddenly was a lot on my plate. So gradually, Aikido practice became less and less. Yeah, well, at some point I was in the national team for both Iaido and Jodo, and that really led to me dropping Aikido quite a bit. Yeah, that was a bit too much for a person to deal with.
I can imagine that once you enter into a national team, things change quite a bit. Like before, you were just practicing in the dojo, you had this one space, you had this one city, Helsinki, and then suddenly you're introduced to this international community. Can you talk a bit about your first introduction to the team, to the national team, and then going to these international events?
Well, the national team in Finland for Jodo is quite small. The first time when I was around, we had a 3-person team. So we really had to do both the team Taikai and the individuals. And at the time, I was Mudan and the 2 other guys were Shodans. So it was really a low-grade team. But previous years, because we had the senpais, of course, but they didn't want to go at all anymore. And after that was basically the team for many years, me and these 2 guys. The event wasn't my first time in an international seminar, but the whole competing experience was, it was interesting and quite stressful. But I really enjoyed meeting all the people, and somehow when you're in the European Championships, you really get to know other people better than just joining a seminar, because you have this event, you're with the people in your pool or in your category, and especially in Jodo, you have to be prepared to be anybody's tachi, and anybody can be your tachi for the Taikai. So you really have to be alert, and it's really nice when you get to talk to the other people, and because you're in the same situation, you understand what they're going through and try to help other people. Yeah, I find it's very a supporting community in the European Championships, both in Iaido and Jodo.
What would be the next thing that you remember from that period of starting on the national team that really sticks out in your mind?
Well, the next year I went to the finals in Jodo, and yeah, that was a new experience. The pressure was much higher in that sense, but nothing really, not that memorable moments, I have to say.
After you get to a certain level where you're always competitive, you're getting further in the rounds, typically you start seeing the same people. Do you notice any rivalries that are popping up that, oh yeah, I'm always facing this person, I'm always beating them, they're always beating me, with you or with anyone else that sticks out in your mind?
When you advance in your grades, you get to new categories. And of course, there's the people who have been there for longer time, especially in the Sandan or Yondan categories. There are people who have been there for 3 years or something like that. So they're senpais to you and you look up to them because they're really nice and really good. And yeah, but I wouldn't say that I don't consider people as rivalries or something like that. It's just, I admire their technique and I admire their practice, and some people are just awesome. And I feel that if I get to fight with them, I'd be really lucky. But I don't think about anybody as being a rival. It's not that I'm cocky or something like that, but I don't want to compare myself to other people in that sense. In Iaido and Jodo, because in Iaido you have your kasoteki, and in Jodo you have your tachi, and you're doing your performance with them. The other person who you're fighting against they can be really, really good. And it's up to the judges to decide which one is better at that moment. But it doesn't make you worse or better or something like that, that you have to think about, I have to beat this other person. You just have to beat your own kasoteki or the tachi you're facing. That's what I think.
How would you describe the difference between participating as an individual competitor versus competing on a team?
If I think about Iaido performance, in the individuals, you're trying to do it by yourself, but in your team, you're responsible that the other team or the other members of the team can do their best as well. So because it's in team taikai, it's if you get 3 points in all, or 9 if you want to think, you have to get 2 wins. So of course you want to win because of the other people. But in the individual taikai, I don't think about that at all. I just really try to focus on my kasoteki. But in the team taikai, it more becomes about winning or losing. And in Jodo, it's because we have a 3-person team with one doing only 1 match, and then the second, the Chuken, is doing 2 matches. And the Taisho, the captain of the team, will do all of the matches. So being Taisho is a really demanding job. You have to be tachi for 2 people. And after that, you have to do your own performance with really sweaty hands and just trying to do your best. And it's a really demanding job. And I've been Taisho a couple of times, and it makes the whole team taikai a really big effort, I have to say.
As Taisho, how do you prepare yourself physically and mentally to do all 3 of those?
Well, as a tachi, you have to give your all. That's it. Just try to make the other people in your team, just give them all the spirit you can give them. Try to be as accurate as you can as a Taisho. Then you just have to, during the shiuchi kotai for the final part, you have to calm yourself a lot to be able to perform in that last match as a shijo. So I don't know. It's a really demanding job.
Last question before moving on to non-Taikai stuff. As you're getting more experience, but you're looking around and you're not very senior in terms of 5th Dan, 6th Dan, 7th Dan, and yet you have to be able to lead the Finnish team in a lot of ways, like be a mentor to the more junior members that are participating. How do you approach that?
Everything you've learned in the past, you try to give everything you can to the juniors of the team, the Mudans and the Shodans and the Nidans, and you try to coach them to remain calm and at the Taikai, give all your ki, what you can. And but mostly during the practices, it's all the technical stuff that you end up giving them. But we've had discussions with the junior members of the team many times before going to the Europeans, like what to do there, don't get drunk and behave, don't ask stupid questions during the seminar. If you really have a question, then you can ask, but try not to make a fool out of yourself. And yeah, do your best. That's it.
Cool. So let's go back to your practice. And you mentioned in the beginning that you had not only interest in Japanese culture and martial arts, but Japan itself. Can you talk about your first introduction to a Japanese sensei and then eventually getting to go to Japan for training?
Yeah, because I train in Finland, and basically Momiyama Sensei, Momiyama Takao, who is a Nanadan in Jodo and Iaido, and he lives in Sweden, and he comes to teach a couple of times a year to Finland. And the first time I went to a seminar here, I got to know him, but it wasn't until I became Shodan. Then I asked him directly, which is, I learned a lot later that it's not very common to ask a sensei if you can be their student. You have to get your senpai to ask it for you and not ask sensei directly. But I did ask, and I made a huge mistake there, but it turned out okay. And everything changed after that. Sensei gave a lot of points. He taught me a lot, and not only in Jodo, but in Iaido as well, when I started Iaido. And he did teach me from the beginning with Iaido. And going to his house, I mean, he lives in the southern part of Sweden, and he lives in the countryside, and he has his own dojo, and went to visit there and train there, not many times a year, but still. So that was sort of the turning point in how I became more serious in my practice. So when I had a sensei, I felt that since I was the one asking for him to teach me, I felt I was obliged to also work hard, do my best, and I'm trying to do that all the time. Then, as a side story here, when I was Mudan, it was my second seminar abroad, but we went to Sweden with the entire dojo, more or less, and Ishido Sensei was teaching there. He's a Hachidan both in Iaido and Jodo. And there I saw this sensei, which was completely amazing in everything he did. He became like a mythical person in my mind that, wow, this amazing sensei. It turned out later that Momiyama Sensei was his student. Then years after, Momiyama Sensei introduced the idea that you can go to Japan at some point in your practice or some point. But he told me that, yes, you have to be Sandan to go. And when I got Sandan in Iaido, because I started that later, after many discussions and being introduced to Ishido Sensei, finally introduced in Europe at seminars, finally went to Japan and practiced at the dojo in Kawasaki, where Ishido Sensei lives and teaches.
That was your first time to Japan?
Yeah, in 2017, yes.
So not only as a practitioner, but also as a tourist to see this country.
Yeah, I spent an entire month in Japan and practiced there at the dojo for 3 weeks, which was quite hard, practicing almost every day, but not Sundays, since Sunday is a day off for the dojo, but practicing from morning and some days until the evening, because Monday and Tuesday is Iaido in the evening, and then Wednesday is a Jodo evening. So the entire day from morning until 10, 11 in the evening, just practicing. First time I got an injury during because of that practice, just because it was too hard. The joints in my wrist didn't cope with that. But I've learned my lesson since that. But I have been doing that hard kind of keiko, or like many consecutive days. And all the times I've been there, I practiced for 3 weeks, but not having injuries. That's a good thing after that. But the first time in Japan, I did see Kyoto, which was sort of a dream of mine from childhood, that this is an amazing place and I have to go and visit that sometimes. And I did, and it was exactly like I imagined. Of course, there were lots of tourists, but you could really see how it was, and it has its own kind of feeling, that city. It's amazing.
So a trip like that, especially the first time, can be quite life-changing. Did you notice anything different with you after you came back in terms of your approach to seeing the world, approach to your practice, approach to what this martial arts community is all about?
Yeah, after seeing how people practice in Japan, it definitely had a huge effect. Just seeing, was my first time being around a Hachidan every day, the way he taught people there. It really affected how I was teaching other people as well. All the knowledge you could sort of gain there, you try to give to others, but at the dojo, but the way he let people do and then correct the other people, it sort of was something I never did before, but then I started doing that also. Of course, not in the same way as Ishido Sensei, of course, but trying to give more time to other people to practice, and then looking at them really hard and then trying to figure out what is wrong and what you could do better and things like that. It was a wholesome experience as a student of martial arts, but also as a teacher or a trainer or a dojo leader.
What are some of the things besides the practice, places, activities that you feel like whenever you go back to Japan now, you have to do? It wouldn't be a complete trip if you don't do it.
Each time I've seen gradings there. The first time it was quite fortunate that they removed the Hachidan grading in Iaido from Kyoto to Tokyo that year. So they didn't have the Hachidan grading at Kyoto Taikai. And I was really happy and lucky to see that. It really opened my eyes how demanding the Hachidan grading really is. Since it was also the first time they introduced this, that you don't have koryu in the grading at all. So first round, they only do 6, or not only, but they have to do 6 katas. And if they get to the second round, they have to do the entire set of seitei at one go. And it was quite amazing to see those performances. And looking at the judges, which were 9 judges in front of them. And then also in the side, there's 3 Hachidans as well. It's a completely amazing kind of set. And some of the people taking the grading there, they were really, really amazing. But only 2 people passed that time. And that really puts things into perspective. How difficult it is to get a Hachidan. Of course, it's not the same as in Kendo, where you have 1,000 people trying for Hachidan and maybe 1 or 2 gets it. And it's amazing experience to see that.
I think it's actually a good parallel to how difficult it is to get the martial arts in general, because you could say a lot of people join and start and try, but very few people stay and understand what it's really about. When you think about how long you've been practicing and all the people that have come and gone, what are some of the more meaningful relationships that you've been able to develop being part of this community?
Well, of course, there's my sensei. It's really important to me. Then there's other students of his in Sweden. They're really important to me. My senpais in Sweden, and also people in Finland, of course. But then people I've met through the European Taikais. There's so many. But Polish people, for example, they have a special place in my heart since I've been going to Poland every year for practicing Jodo. And they're really amazing people. They work hard. It's been a real joy to practice with them all these years. Then, of course, Andy Watson. We've been together in Japan a couple of times, and I really appreciate his patience on translating everything, since my Japanese is not that good. It's really a kind of beginner level. He's been really kind to help with the language and other things as well. And yeah, there's so many people, so many friends, and I cannot name people. It's really hard.
When you start taking on more responsibilities, it also comes with its share of challenges. In terms of all the things that you've had to deal with, all the things that gave you sleepless nights or made you worried, who were the people that really helped you get through that?
My husband, he did, and Momiyama Sensei. Just helping, and you can go to them and they would say that it's okay, don't worry, and things like that. Sometimes it's the best thing you can hear. Don't worry, don't take so much stress, it will be fine. Yeah, things like that.
We talked a lot about like your first times of stuff. Let's move to just more recently, the last couple of years, and things that are developing that maybe COVID has set aside or made it more difficult to keep going in that path. What are some of the things that you've been working on that you're excited about for the future of these arts in Europe or in Finland or even just in your dojo?
Well, the COVID situation has really changed everything, I have to say. Normally, I would travel a lot to taikais, to seminars, at least some maybe 3, 4, 5 seminars a year, and then Japan. This year, none of that has been possible. I've been to one seminar in February, and then this whole thing started. It's been really hard that way, that you've had to practice from home. And as a dojo leader, we really had to start practicing Jodo at home. And that has been really challenging. I think many people have dropped Jodo as well. So just trying to keep the members is really hard at these times when there's more important things like health, family, and in a way it's a good reminder that some things are more important. But as a person who would spend a lot of time doing this, it's really hard to just drop it. It's just not possible. And I found myself that I've been practicing almost as much as before. Because of these online keiko, it's possible to practice at home. And somehow you can develop your yai and develop your jo that you can practice at home. Some people have become more close to me than before because of this. Just that we meet online keiko every week. It's really nice. And yeah.
I was wondering, there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that will not have much knowledge of Finland or that area of Europe. Is there anything that you can share that you can point to as unique about doing Iaido and Jodo in Finland?
That's a difficult question. I don't see that there is so much unique things here. I think that Finnish people have the same kind of humbleness as Japanese people, that when we decide that this is the thing we want to do, we really do it. And we also have this word in Finnish called sisu. It means this perseverance. I think that's a trait in the Finnish people that makes us wanting to practice Budo, because it's a really kind of art that requires a person to not to have like stamina, but you can do this for your entire life.
How do you spell that? If I wanted to look it up.
SISU.
That's a beautiful sentiment. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for doing this again.
Yeah, I hope this was something okay.
Absolutely. Everyone has something interesting and unique to share. I think for someone like you who takes it seriously, anyone would love to talk to someone who feels this committed and dedicated to the martial arts. It's so clear how much passion you have for doing this work that, yeah, it's just beautiful to listen to. So thank you.
Oh, thanks. I'm sure you say this to everybody, but
I say it to everyone I talk to on this interview, because I wouldn't invite anyone who doesn't have this. Personally, you've seen this too. Like I mentioned, there's so many people that come in and then they leave. So they didn't understand it. And then there's so many people that come in and then they stay, but they don't get it. They're just staying because it's a hobby or it's something. But then for the few people that you get to talk to that really care about their own improvement and care about the practice, not even leading, not even just teaching, not even just organizing events, but I just love the practice and I want to do more of it. I can't wait to get back in a dojo. There's so few of those people to talk to that I just love it when I get to have this conversation.
Yeah, it's just as you described. I would do ukenagashi, the kata. And that kata, more or less only that kata for every day. And of course there was something else, but I would always go back to this kata. And it's just that I can't get enough of it. It's hard, it's demanding, and then you still want to practice it. You don't want to let go until you're okay with it, or as long as sensei is okay with it, or when you get this kind of like, okay, now it's somewhat there, then you can maybe slightly go easy with it, but it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Same thing with Jodo. I had a technique there is called hikyotoshi, and I practiced that a lot for 5 years, and always sensei says, no, not enough, not yet. This kind of things he would say. And then one day, before I got sundown, he was like, okay. So that was a turning point, a moment that, okay, now there's something that he can approve of. So I must be doing something correctly now. So I have to start thinking about how can I develop from this. And like I said, maybe it's a trait in Finnish people. We might be a bit crazy, but you certainly go until the end with these.
That's great. Thank you.
I have to say I really appreciate your invitation and an offer to do this. It's I don't think it's very, I feel honored because I'm such a low grade and not been practicing for 20 years or 30 years or something like that. But yeah, Jodo and Iaido are fairly new to me, but in the sense that it's 10 or less years.
One of the things I really want to do is to share and hopefully motivate the people like you to really step up, because you are the future and we need to find these people. And it's getting harder and harder these days. Social media or whatever, you don't see the same type of people, the same amount and the quality of people. So I'm honored to be able to showcase you to more of the world, to show people that they can be more like this.
That's scary, but
thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Hey guys, just one more thing before you head out. Stay up to date on latest news and announcements by subscribing to our newsletter at subscribe.tokushikai.ca or connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at tokushikai.canada. We're always looking for ways to improve, so please drop us a line on ideas and guests for the show. The Inside Look podcast is a production of Tokushikai Canada, a member of the Canadian Kendo Federation and affiliated with the Japanese Canadian Cultural Centre in Toronto and the original Tokushikai Iaido Club in Tokyo.